And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Jamison Daigle Show. As always, I'm your host, Jamison Daigle. And, wow, what a college football Saturday. Had some unbelievably exciting games, high-scoring games. Get down to the wire. The top four, I'm going to give you the top four this week of my playoff teams. The playoff picture is shaping up. I have one team move in. These are just my top four teams that I have right now. Two of these teams I have here aren't going to obviously play in the playoff because they're in the same conference, which kind of gives it away a little bit. But there's another team that snuck into the top four this week that I have just been impressed with the last couple weeks. Really, really, really impressed. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're doing well. This weather's been tremendous. I feel like we're in fall weather, gumbo time. Sweaters coming up. Hopefully that'll last. That'll come up in obviously November, December. It's good to be heading into the fall. The weather's great right now. A great weekend for LSU Southern Miss. This is a week that's going to be interesting for LSU. Basically coming off a bye week they weren't expected, as Florida somehow maneuvered their way, using the weather as an excuse. Instead of setting up a neutral site game, setting up some type of something to play this game, they have tried to cancel this game, and appears today Commissioner Sankey says, "Not so fast, my friends." A little Lee Corso on the Florida Gators. Joe Oliva says, "We're not giving up that home game that we have with South Alabama." He fires back on November the 19th is the proposed date. Now, looking a little bit further into this, Commissioner Sankey, he just wants to get this game played. He said this game needs to be played. It can't just be canceled. The SEC needs to play this game. And, I mean, how could you disagree with the guy? As college football fans, we don't know what exactly is going to take place the rest of this year. This could be a very, very, very important game. It just depends on what happens. But, I mean, let's just say something were to happen where this game determines who goes to the SEC championship games. And I think that's where along the lines Commissioner Sankey is headed. There's talk about LSU possibly buying out, giving Southern Alabama the money they're paying them to come in. Florida has Presbyterian College on their schedule that weekend. There's talk about buying them out so they could schedule a game with LSU. There's all kinds of different scenarios. They're talking about moving the SEC championship back game a week, possibly moving the Florida-Georgia largest outdoor cocktail party, moving that game to November the 6th, and then using October 29th as the time to play LSU. So there's all kinds of different scenarios, all kinds of different dates that are getting proposed. So obviously Commissioner Sankey really wants to play this game, which I think is the right idea to do. This game must be played. You can't just, I mean, it's too big of a game. It's LSU, Florida. It's not like it's LSU against a McNeese or a Florida against Florida A&M. This is a huge game. It's big for the fans. It's big for the teams. It's big for the conference. And to just throw it away, it's just ridiculous. And the whole thing is ridiculous in my opinion and could have easily been avoided. Could have been a situation to where they do this at the beginning of the week last week and then they handle it. And it's already said, it's already done. Whatever the decision was, it could have been done a lot sooner. And it's affected people, at these universities. Affected the way they prepare the whole season. It just feels like there's like a missing piece. I've also got an update on top wide receiver People Jones. He had a visit to Ohio State. I will let you know how his visit to the Buckeyes went. He is the top receiver in the country. I will give you his top schools he's taking a look at. Nothing major to report off the recruiting front. Nothing like last week. Just some visits that these top recruits took. How they fared. We will have our normal recruiting Thursday where I give the breakdown of everything big that's happening in recruiting, who's taking visits this week, that kind of thing. That's every week. Now, as well as talk about where the leans are going, what's the crystal ball looking like? Where is so and so going? Just to give my spin, you can follow it, and then we'll actually get to what actually happens. That's what we do. We like to make predictions. We like to get you fired up. We like to do things to get you thinking as well. But we provide the most accurate information in the business. I'm going to give you who are the SEC players of the week. Go around the SEC with some different press conferences, what they have to say about these games coming up. Of course, the sounds of Sanson today are going to be just to kind of go around the world of sports, give you some of those stories that are very interesting always. There's always something good going on in the world of sports, whether it's positive, negative, whatever the case is. We just like to bring you what's out there. And then I have my opinions on certain issues, and sometimes I get revved up, sometimes not. We're going to give you a little small breakdown of the Monday night clash tonight between the Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both these teams are 1-3. This is an interesting spot. I don't think Tampa Bay really had playoff aspirations this year. I think at this point, it looks like another year. Defense is awful. Can't get off the field. Has really weakened this team. Carolina, on the other hand, tonight is their night. Tonight is a night they have to come together and get a streak going. If Carolina loses this game tonight, they're done. Their season's over. They won't be able to make the playoffs. So this gets them back to striking distance. It's going to be tough for them to win the South this year, being the fact that Atlanta's 4-1. Yes, Atlanta. There's 11 more games to be played. Injuries can take a part in that. We know that. But that NFC South right now, you have all other than Atlanta, you have 3 teams: Tampa Bay, Carolina, New Orleans, that are all 1-3. They've got the leg up though. They beat the Saints. They lost to Tampa Bay. They beat Carolina. Falcons have really, as painful as it is for me to say, have done extremely well so far in these first 5 games. They've earned it. And They got them another win on the road this week at Mile High. This team through the first 5 games, they're for real. They look good. Matty Ice is playing on a level that he hadn't played on in 4 or 5 years. Been just a fantasy MVP first 5 weeks without a doubt. We're going to kind of talk a little bit about who are the fantasy studs so far this week. And then, of course, we'll always do our Fantasy Friday on this Friday and talk about who's the top, who should be in your lineup, who shouldn't, all that good stuff. I'm going to give my, around 3 weeks from now, week 8, I'm going to give my fantasy awards, my halfway fantasy MVP, my rookies of the year, all my awards. And who's been the biggest fantasy disappointment? You know, I got to say, man, I'm really, really disappointed in Todd Gurley. I'm glad that my position in the draft, because I would have taken this guy. He looked like a prospect in fantasy football this year that was going to blow up. Had a great year last year. He's prime, ready to go. And in typical fantasy football fashion, the next year is an off year. Prime example, look at C.J. Anderson. 2014, this guy was a stud muffin. Fantastic. What happened last year? Flop of all flops. DeMarco Murray, same example. Prime example. Of course, he went with a new team, and now he's one of the top fantasy running backs out there. So right now, Todd Gurley actually he is a fantasy bust so far. Now, however, he could be a guy that you could buy low and trade for. That's a guy you may want to try and grab because you could get him for cheap right now. He doesn't have a whole lot of value. Young players, Derek Carr, Jordan Howard, the running back of the Bears, look to be taken off. Young guys getting ready. And I'm going to give you a waiver wire target to try and take a look at before Wednesday. That's when most of your drafts, when most of them have that period to where you got the little holdover time for the waiver wire, then it becomes effective. So I'm going to give you my top waiver wire target, if he's out there for you. That way you can go check it and go grab him. Because that's what Jameson Daigle does. He gives you fantasy. And right now I'm tearing it up. Number 1 in my league. Over 1,000 points. Just really doing well so far. The team I have is pretty solid. I got to admit. I had a heck of a draft. And I know a lot of you out there are doing well too. So I'm hoping to be able to give you some information on fantasy football that's been able to help you excel in your league as well. So, well, let's get down to it. The first thing I want to do is go with my sounds of song that I do each week to begin the show. This week, I gotta tell you, is Zeke Elliott living the life right now or what? So, Zeke turns up in the club